My name's Helen Phoebe. I'm Head of Curatorial Programme here at Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and it's been my real privilege to work with Rachel Kneebone on the latest presentation of her major work, 399 Days, here in St Bartholomew's Chapel, which is the Bretton Estate Chapel, which was built in 1744, which we curate very sensitively to the architecture. The more that I've got to know Rachel and her process, it's this brokenness, as Ali Smith talked about in her essay for the Rodin Kneebone catalogue, this idea that there's a tension between, so anybody I think who thinks they can master porcelain is wrong, and Rachel's wisdom and her practice for many years has been to understand that this material, it's a dialogue with the material, and there's a point where she has to let go, and the material will sort of determine its own form to some extent. So for example, with 399 days, each of the panels starts the same size, and then everything is handmade apart from the orbs, which are moulded, but everything else is by her hand. And then at the point it goes into the kiln and dries out and is fired, each plaque is reduced by 13 to 14%, and she's not in control of that. But that is very much still part of that process. So the fact that it's called 399 days is because that's how long it took her to make. But she's also said rightly that it's taken a lifetime to make, because it's taken a lifetime of understanding her place in the world, understanding how we exist in the world, the materiality that she's working with. So 399 Days was shown at White Cube Gallery, which is the gallery that works with Rachel. It was then shown in the Cast Court at the V&A, where it was around, so the Cast Court is something I remember very fondly from student days and becoming a student of sculpture. And for example, Trajan's column is there, which is the plaster column of the Roman victory column. And so occupying that space then gave it a whole other reading to the White Cube, literally White Cube gallery space. And each brings its own character and draws different elements out. So here, physically, in this chapel, this is the first time Rachel was saying that you experience the work with a landscape setting beyond, that you see daylight and greenery. So one of the things that we're really looking forward to is how the experience changes through different seasons. You know, when it's snowing outside, this work will never have experienced snow beyond the windows before, and that's really exciting for us. And it kind of references the architecture in here, so it made me start to look at the architecture of this building, which I know very well, and reading it in slightly different ways. So picking up the detail around the ceiling, around the window, the plaster casting around the columns, for example, and also the space beyond, the organic forms beyond, but also this idea of metamorphosis, of life and death, of that constant cycle. That's played out at the Sculpture Park in terms of it being a natural setting, and the fact that, you know, we share this space with trees that are hundreds of years old, different animals, you know, it's not just for people. And that really relates to the whole theme of Rachel's work. When we had the brilliant opportunity to show 399 Days, which is now in a European collection, it was really exciting for us to work with Rachel and White Cube to develop the rest of the exhibition. And Roll, which is shown here in the vestry, is another porcelain piece, and it's perfectly suited in scale and form, but also in the fact that it has this tomb-like element which is cracking open, and then life is really bursting out of it. It looks like it's moving, and you get this beautiful light effect from the window and the daylight, and then this backdrop of this wood-panelled room. And this is where the vicar would have written their sermons, you know, the kind of depth of history, and what these walls would have heard since 1744 and what they've borne witness to, we felt just not only formally but conceptually worked really well to give them, you always know when something looks like it's always been there. We're also showing 3 wall works which have not been shown before, which Rachel's made over the last 18 months. They're Whirl, Eddy and Pulse, and they are each inspired by the movement of water. So something that's really important in all of Rachel's work is this sense of movement that's suggested So you never get the entire body, you get the suggestion of it and your mind kind of fills in the blanks. The drawings that Rachel shared with us here are from the Ovid in Exile series, and she's really interested in the poet Ovid and his detailing of metamorphosis. So he's particularly famous for talking about metamorphosis and change. But also they're very much to me about dance, about movement, so they relate to the sculptures, but they're never, Rachel doesn't draw the sculptures, these are a different element to her practice. And then she actually kind of turns them round, so they're very much considered sculpturally from each side of the paper. And one of the most moving artworks I've actually ever seen was Rachel's work in Rochdale. She had an exhibition at Touchstone in Rochdale and worked with a group of women on a performance of dance and movement. And elements of it were very sad and elements were very funny, but you just got the sense that it had really tapped into something in their lives. Nothing like this exists in the world. This is unique. And something that Rachel said that has really stayed with me is that if she knew what it was going to look like when she started it, she wouldn't have had to make it. It was this sense of it having to come into the world and exist. And yeah, I mean, people of all ages will come in and it's going to flick something in their brain. They've never seen anything like this before. I'm sure quite a few people will go away and sign up for a course in ceramics. And that's what it's all about, really. It's that access to the best of international practice.